Sharing his thoughts with us on those stories is film critic Dale Pollak, of course, a friend of the show. Good morning, Dale. Good to see you on this Friday.
Good morning, Dylan, Jackie, and Audrey. Great to be with you.
Of course, let's get right into it. Tell us what you thought about Reagan, the film in theaters.
Well, this film is a little bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing because I didn't realize until the first 5 minutes that it's a faith-based film. It's not a serious political look at Reagan. It's Reagan paying tribute to the Almighty for every good thing that happens in his life and career. So it's not a serious biopic on any level. And I will say Dennis Quaid, who has become a very conservative actor in his later years, he just gives a weird performance. He's sort of imitating Reagan, but sort of not. And then he's saddled with really among the most painful and worst dialogue I have heard all year. I mean, this just doesn't go anywhere. And it's way too long at 2 hours and 15 minutes. Apparently, the original cut was 3 hours and 40 minutes. Whoa. So it's been shortened. But, you know, it doesn't give you a serious look at Reagan. Penelope Ann Miller is very good as Nancy Reagan. But once again, the film doesn't show how she was actually kind of running the country in the later stages of his Alzheimer's disease while he was still president. So, you know, Reagan does nothing wrong in this film. Everything is a wonderful choice. Everything he does is great. It's not a serious political biopic. It's a faith-based movie. And if that's what you're interested in, then by all means go see it. But if you're expecting something else, as I was, you're going to be severely disappointed.
Okay, that's good to know. I would have expected it to be like a serious biopic as well.
Especially with Dennis Quaid. Like, you think of him and you think of like these big movies.
Right, and certainly a former president too. What'd you think of it, Dale? How many popcorns?
One popcorn. Really atrocious and turgid direction doesn't equal a winning combination.
Okay,
sound like
you heard it. Not a winning combination.
This one should be consigned to history.
I can't believe you just used the word atrocious.
That's a critic for you.
There you go. Tell it to us straight, Dale.
Now we know to not go to the theaters
what not to watch.
and pay that money. All right.
Avoid this one.
We can watch the next one at home on Hulu. It's called Under the Bridge. Tell us about it.
Well, this is a kind of teen murder drama, of course, as all of these are, based on a true event. But it introduces some really exciting new talent that I hadn't seen before. An actress named Chloe Guidry, another actress, literally her name is Izzy G, are both excellent as these two nasty teenagers who take out their frustrations on an immigrant girl from India who just wants to be accepted. And this is kind of the real version of Mean Girls. You know, it's not a comedy, it's not a musical, they're just mean. Ritik Gupta is very effective as the victim in this, and her parents, two Indian actors, are also very, very good. And it has some really effective twists and turns that you don't see coming. So, you know, these kind of series have proliferated in the era of streaming, you know, the murder of someone, the torture of someone. So nothing is greatly original here, but it is a well-told series, and it surprises you at certain terms. So it's not superlative, but it's very well done. I'm giving it 3 popcorns because I think it achieves what it sets out to.
Okay, 3 popcorns. That would warrant me to sit and watch a
Definitely.
show.
Yeah, and
Not bad at all.
I think it's interesting the comparison of Mean Girls, because as you were explaining the premise, I was thinking that a little bit. Yeah.
And it's based on a true story, Dale.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I really enjoy
True
those.
story, and the ending will surprise you.
Okay.
Even better.
All right, something to keep hanging on for. Awesome. Thank you, Dale. And then finally, another streaming thing on Netflix. I've heard about this, but I haven't watched it yet. Dirty Pop, the boy band scam. What'd you think?
Well, I was waiting for a real scandal to be uncovered in this film, and it isn't. I mean, it's really the story of their manager, Lou Pearlman, who is a strange kind of guy, sort of asexual in a way. You kind of think that sometimes he might be gay, sometimes he might be straight. He just seems to be nothing. But what he does do, what he's very good at, is extracting money from the formula he has devised on how to create a boy band. And he did this with several bands, and he was enormously successful. And, you know, what's interesting about this, the members of these bands actually made a lot of money. But what he was doing was scamming them in a way. He was paying, if there were 5 guys in the band, he paid himself as the 6th member of the band. So he was paying himself every time the band performed or made a record. And that is completely unethical. He also kind of ran a Ponzi scheme. All the cash that was going in, he invested, he got other people to join his investments, and they were wiped out in the end. So it's kind of a sordid tale, but you're waiting for a really manipulative guy to be at the heart of it. And Lou Pearlman just wasn't. In the end, he's kind of a sad sack character. He's not a villain in the traditional way. I mean, yes, he stole money, but he didn't abuse the band members, and they all pretty much got successful off of what he created. So I think as an expose, this is kind of disappointing. That's why I'm giving it 2 popcorns, because nothing, that outrageous is uncovered. But it is a sort of tale of what can happen in the music business when there's a lot of money to be made, and there's people who you can exploit to help you make them and yourself more money. That's kind of the message of this film. And, that's kind of a strange message that you're left with after 4 episodes.
Yeah, I do feel like when I heard about this, that people were saying that they learned maybe a little bit more about the groups that were involved and how maybe they were closer than rather the rivalry that everyone kind of thought they had. Yeah, so I don't know.
It's not the expose they kind of sell it as.
Right, okay.
What are the bands though? NSYNC and who
NSYNC.
else?
Gosh, I can't remember the name of the other band.
Okay.
Yeah.
In sync.
These
98
bands have
Degrees?
kind of faded.
No. Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys.
Man, I was having a
Backstreet
moment. Yeah, I
Boys.
forgot for a
Okay,
second.
we were showing the other photo
Yeah.
of a band and I couldn't
Yeah.
depict who they were because it was
Yeah.
from like the
And
90s.
look, he was good at creating these bands. That was his talent.
Right.
And he hired choreographers and vocal coaches. I mean, he really taught them how to perform. But it was all to himself making more money, which is not unusual in show business.
Right.
Right? That's not a news story.
Dale, thank you as always for your insight this morning on those 3 titles. They are on the screen now for folks at home. One more time, Reagan, that is a film in movie theaters right now, Under the Bridge on Hulu, and lastly, Dirty Pop, the boy band scam on Netflix.